happy people. It is time. It's 5:30. Thank you for joining me today for Happy Hour with Dr. Lisa. I am your host. I am Dr. Lisa. And I am so excited to be back. I had to skip last week unexpectedly, but I'm back this week. And I am considering doing the podcast every other week, just for a couple of weeks, and then coming back full time every week after I have something that I'm doing end. So I will let you all know via social media if I decide to go every other week. And I will have that posted probably by the weekend. And it's been a really long day, and I hope you guys had a good day. I wanted to start today quickly by answering a question that came to me. And every now and then, I'm going to deviate from talking about kids that can see ghosts in the beginning of this podcast, just to kind of answer a general question from people who want to ask me questions about psychology. Excuse me, I have a hoarse voice today. And then we'll go into the podcast. So, first, I'm going to answer this question, and then we're going to go straight into the podcast with Blog 51, which is Child J, a continuation of the conversation that I had with Child J. And then I'm going to introduce Child K, which is an even more interesting child. So, the question that was posed to me was interesting, and I actually think I'm going to write a blog about it for educational purposes, because I want to try to make sure I teach students who are aspiring to be psychologists as much information as I can on this podcast. And the reason that I'm doing that is because no one answered my questions when I was a student. And I think if I had to ask some of the questions about the field of psychology or getting a doctorate degree in psychology long before I went into a doctorate program, I may have not gotten a doctorate, or maybe I would have. Either way, that doctorate brings me to speaking with all of you, which is fantastic. It also gives me the ability to answer a lot of questions from a lot of different people in the public, and I appreciate that too. So, let's start with the question. This person sent me a message and asked me if you could change anything about psychology or going into the field of psychology, would you change anything or no? And I thought that was a great question because I have a lot of responses to that one. But I'm going to keep it basic for the sake of writing my responses out on my blog. So, would I change anything? Absolutely. For myself, what I would have changed is having more knowledge about clinical psychology. See, I think I had knowledge about school psychology, but not as much as I needed for clinical psych. And that is because I didn't have people like me talk directly to me about clinical psych. So all of you have me. For example, when you have questions, and some students listen to me now, you all can ask me, and I'm going to tell you, what I think you should know and what I think is helpful to your career projection, and answer questions about different things, ethical questions, licensing standards, stuff like that. See, I didn't have anyone to ask those things to. And so if I had probed better when I was younger and asked more questions, my path probably would have been industrial organizational psychology, because I do like the business aspect of psychology. So, for example, going into a corporation and doing a full job analysis for them, or doing needs analyses for them, those things like that. I really like that kind of stuff. organizational and industrial. We call them IO psychologists. They also don't have to be licensed clinically like clinical psychologists do if they decide to go into private practice or just, want a license to a board license. So I would have learned more about those things because my program did offer IO. I just didn't know enough about it and didn't think to ask a lot of questions. In my defense, however, I had a very young baby when I started my doctorate program. And those of you who have children, you know how cloudy your brain is when you have a new baby. So I did not ask the questions that I needed to ask. Um, what I would like to see in the future is that some of the requirements to get licensed get changed. I think that some things are biased toward minorities, and I would like to see those things change, or I would like to fight on behalf of individuals who are unable to either get licensed or have trouble getting licensed or have don't have the funds to get licensed. I would like to do that one day, starting with looking at the different assessments that psychologists provide to other people. So, over the years, I've seen a lot of answers and questions to tests that I have thought were extremely biased, pending the culture that you are from or your ethnicity. I have looked at questions myself, excuse me, for example, on intelligence tests, honestly, and thought there isn't one black person that would actually answer that question that way. Now, many African Americans have trained their brains to think differently and to go more mainstream, but that's really difficult for some, for example. So, those kind of things I would like to see change. Would I do another career? Or would I have? Absolutely. I would have probably gotten out of if I didn't want to do IO psych, I probably would have been a marine biologist because my family will tell you that I actually like marine life, so sea turtles and dolphins and I think I miss my calling there because I'm really passionate about those animals and really want to maybe volunteer one day, maybe once my little kids are grown, um, down in Florida somewhere. So that is something that I probably would have changed. So going forward, my suggestion is for you guys, if you are wanting to go into the field of psychology, make sure you have all your questions answered. Make sure that you know exactly what you want to do. If you want to become a professor, if you want to do research, or if you like the hell with research, I just want to do therapy or clinical practice, then that determines what kind of degree you get as well. And then if you have a passion to do something totally different, my suggestion is that you research those things as well to make sure you are making an informed decision about what you like to do with your career. So hopefully that is a start to answering that question. And if you have any other questions, you can always send me an email. And that email address is kidscansee@gmail.com. And you can always call me 765-205-1959. Or you can hit me up on social media. I'm on all platforms, even TikTok now. So I don't do the live little dancing. It would have to be my kids when they become teenagers talking me into doing some dancing on TikTok. I just don't do that. Now, can I dance? Yep. Do I have rhythm? Yep. Still got it, you guys. But I do not put that kind of stuff on TikTok. My social media is primarily used for the advancement of this podcast and also my blog. There you go. But you might catch me dancing on TikTok one day. But I have to have all my makeup and stuff done to get on TikTok. And, like, I'm not live right now because I don't have that stuff done. So if you know anything about me just by listening to me, you know I'm not going to get on TikTok if I'm looking all a hot mess, or as some people say, a ham, a hot ass mess. Not doing it. All right. So let's go into blog 51. It is called or titled Child J Introducing Child K. So let me share something with you. When I wrote this blog, it was after taking a little break from writing my blog. Hold on one second. I was sitting here thinking I was having a hot flash and realized I have my space heater on. I'm sorry, I had to take a break and turn it off. Oh my God. Let me tell you, gentlemen, this is something that you never have to deal with, but whew, it's like having an internal flame on all the time. And on top of that, a space heater. I was like, why am I pouring in sweat talking about Blog 51? But now you know. So sorry about that. I had to turn that thing off. So when I wrote this blog, I'll share with you that I was having writer's block. You know, I have a lot of memory. A lot of these blogs I'm writing from my memory, things that I've experienced in psychology. And then I'll forget about a whole lot of other things, and then I'll have some type of trigger. And that trigger will make me go, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I forgot about the trees, or I forgot about the animals, or I forgot kids taught me about, XYZ. And then I'll start my blog, right? Well, this was a time when I just couldn't think of anything. And so, just at random, various adults and several kids I met just started talking to me about their ability to see ghosts. Now, how did it come up? Well, honestly, the new people just told me. These aren't experiences from way deep in my past, like 15, 20 years ago. These are more recent experiences within the last year or two. And so, in talking to these kids, some of them just started talking to me and telling me stuff, which I don't always know why, but they do. And so these are more recent stories. And so I started to keep my own little, I started writing them. How do I explain? I started writing these blogs ahead of time after this. So, like, I can have 4 blogs written and then just publish them week by week. So, this is when I started to do this. So, I started thinking about some conversations that I had, and I started taking extensive notes about those conversations. So, that's what I'm sharing with you. I'm hot in blog 51. And so I'm thrilled. I was thrilled. I remember feeling like really happy because I didn't have to go into my brain and then look at old notes that I have and other old things where I had this stuff stored. And so I asked a group of kids and a couple of adults, hey, can I share your story? As I mentioned 2 weeks ago. And these individuals completely gave me assent to talk about them with you all. Like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Now, mind you, none of them knew I had a blog. None of them knew I had a podcast. Literally, I was shooting the breeze with a couple kids. They actually might be listening. Hey, y'all. Hey. And I started feeling overwhelmed because there were so many kids just differently. Now, there have been like 3 other kids, I just haven't written about it yet, who also told me things, and 2 adults. I have to wait a little bit of time before I write those up because I try to make sure these kids don't identify themselves in my blogs, because you want to make sure remember, protect your people from harm. Although none of these are my clients, let me just say that as a disclosure. So some kids just migrate toward me and just want to sit and talk to me, and that's fine. And so as I talk to Child J, I was thinking about the conversation in that day. Oh, one of the things that was said to me was, I have a lot of ghosts in my house. And so I was saying that, I was concerned because the ghosts that the kids were seeing seemed to scare them. And they said yes. And so I said, well, have you talked to your parents? And they're like, yes, this one, Child J, yes. So just so you know, child J and K said yes to the parent option because I always ask kids, hey, have you talked to your parents? What have you said to your parents? How did they react? Are they okay? What are they doing about it? And then go sometimes into my psychology spill, and sometimes I don't. These kids were not my clients. I really didn't have to. But because I care about them and their psychological well being, I might say, so, hey, how long has this been happening? And different open ended questions that, I know about. And so I know how to do, not know about, I know how to do. And so, I told this kid that I was really concerned because the entities that this kid was seeing seemed really dark. So one of the descriptors was that there was a ghost in the attic. So the kids do not go up in the attic. They are afraid of it. And they just refuse. And so I asked what it looked like. And the kid said, I don't know, dark, had like a hunchback, male. I was guessing all this stuff. And the kid started looking at me like, how do you know? I was like, I don't know. Maybe I have some type of insight into it in my brain. I don't know. And this kid was like, well, yeah, but even though it's dark, it's like clear, like I can see through it. And I understand what that means. I wrote a blog about it, how some ghosts can appear like misty, where the kids can actually see the ghost, but then they see through the ghost, like it had like a mist. And so that's what this kid was telling me. And so then I said, I don't know how I am able to describe it for you, because this kid at this point is looking at me with eyes wide. And I'm like, yeah, my eyes are wide too, because I don't know. I've done this before. And then this kid was like, well, yeah, that's how it looks, but there's insects around the kids. So, I mean, around this ghost. So there are always like, bees around, for example, or flies, because they're only contained in that one part, where I've seen this ghost. And I was like, really? And that reminded me of Candyman. When I started, these kids are too young to know about Candyman. Maybe some of you are too young as well. However, I completely remember Candyman. And the advertisement for Candyman, I believe, was a bee or something like that. So that's what it reminded me of. And so my response after this was, let's kind of work on what we could do to make sure that these entities go away, because one of the parents actually saw one of them as well. So when we've counted, and I helped this kid count, we counted about 4 different entities. So like, I think this kid was saying the kitchen, the attic. It's different ones now. Then the shadow man would be 3, and then they don't go in the basement. They're totally against going in the basement, and they said it's just too dark. And when they go down there, they see dark ghosts and stuff like that and shadows. That was the first time that I had ever experienced a child, other than the twins that I talk about on my blog. That was kind of like, well, I won't say the first time, second time with the twins in mind, that I actually talked to a kid who felt like there were more than one entity or ghost in the house. An entity is the same as a ghost. So the way that this family started dealing with these ghosts or entities is that they started to bless their home. They started to use holy water, according to this kid. They started cleansing the house with holy oil, and they started to, this kid said, pray. So I don't have a follow up yet to know if all of these things worked or not. But that is a story that this kid told me. Now, separately, on that same day, I actually asked a sibling of this kid who confirmed, first looked at me shocked, like, how do you know? Then confirmed some of this for me, just out of curiosity, because I wanted to know, hey, how much of this is really going on. And then the parent confirmed. The parent's like, oh, yeah. Like, this is a parent who didn't care anything about what people said. Like, yeah, my house is haunted. I'm trying to, because, my husband saw one of them, and then my kids see this. I don't see it, but I'm blessing my house and blah, 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 because it's just too much going on. So that was Child J. And so what I was thinking when I wrote this blog about Child J and also Child K, their demeanors were a little different. So, in particular with Child K, I do know that there are some mental health challenges there just by way of past history of depression, current presentation of, some sadness, and some other confusion with Child K. However, when Child K listened to what Child J started to tell me, I remember Child K looked really sad. And I don't know why I thought maybe Child K could see ghosts too, because what I noticed, let me sidebar for a second, is that some of these kids tend to hang out together. Remember, I told you guys there's a whole group of kids that I talked to, and all of them are tapping into cult behavior, which I wrote about in blogs after Blog 51. So some of these kids, the older kids, they kind of find each other and they hang out together. And I'm not sure of the reason yet, but Child J was very comfortable listening to Child K's story and vice versa. And they actually sometimes talk about it together, but a lot of times they said they avoid talking about it because it can get really scary. And so I could tell Child K could see something. How about that? And so I said to Child K, hey, whatever you need to talk about, it's all right to talk about it in here. You can do that. And I mean, Child K gave me lip service, baby. This was a kid who was talkative about what he or she could do. So, Child K just kind of told me a story about how he or she could always see ghosts. And I was like, really? And Child K kind of told me, well, yeah, sometimes I can see them clearly, and other times I can't. I can only see a shadow, and sometimes they're clear, like I can see through them, and sometimes they're not. And Child K mentioned, oh, I know all about dark angels, but then Child J said, yeah, me too. They're in my house. Something sarcastic like that. And so, I was telling these children that I talk to kids. It's all right. I'm a safe person. I've heard these stories for many years, and I've talked to kids that can see ghosts over and over again. And one of the things that, kids have told me is that dark angels look like angels. And that's why they call them dark angels. And Child K said, oh, yes, they have wings. They have wings that spread out, but they're dark. They're not white like God's angels. And, I said, the little ones call them dark angels, but bigger kids obviously say demons. And Child K is like, yeah, because they look dark, like black angels. I was like, God, it's amazing. It always, just so you all know, no matter how many times I hear these stories from kids, I'm still always amazed because they have these same exact stories over and over and again. The only difference is that the older kids obviously can tell you more about what these things mean. So I wanted to test the kids, these two kids. Um, and they were for it. Like, all right, let's do it. So I said to Child K, how many angels what do you see around me? I always do an open-ended question. Child K confirmed, looking behind me, that there were angels behind me. I said, how many? Child K said two. I said, really? Okay. Two what? Angels. What gender? And then Child K, and maybe I didn't write this in the blog, I'm not sure, but Child K said there are two angels, one girl and one boy. And I said to Child K, do they or will they talk to you? And so what this kid was doing was periodically closing his or her eyes and saying yes. And I said, interesting. Now, here's a question that I have not asked a kid. And I asked Child K, I said, out of cute, because I know the answer. I just wanted to see what Child K was going to say. I said, which one will talk to you? And Child K said, the boy. And Child K said, he said hi to you. And Child K said, he's laughing. And I said, wow. I said, that's correct. That's correct. I said, the male always talks to the kids. I don't think the female talked to anyone except Child B and Child B's mother. All these years. That was many moons ago. Child B is grown now. That female angel hasn't spoken to anyone again but Child B and Child B's mother. And I said, that's correct. So I started to tell the kids about the blog. And I said, when you get a chance, I want you to read about the angel in the tree. Child K said, oh, okay, this is exciting. You know, you write about this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And so this child started looking at me like behind my head again. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? What are you looking at? Because I'm not sure sometimes. And then Child K said, the female is very close to you. And I said, yes, she stays very close to me, from what other kids have told me. And so I didn't write the whole conversation, just some of it for the sake of, you guys not reading my blog for like 2 hours. Because I can write a lot, but I just don't. And that was confirmation for me. Now, one of the other things that this child said to me was there was a third angel around me, but I don't talk about the third angel that much. And I said, yeah, I know about that one too. I heard about it. Child K also shared with me that he or she was unable to see those angels very clearly. What they look like to Child K is that they look like, he or she described them as like shadows, and kept squinting his or her eyes. like, oh, I know, it was like the silhouette. Like I can see them, and I know they're guys angels because they glow, but they're not coming in very clear to me. And honestly, to you all, from me, I don't know if that's because I've been talking about them so much, on the blog, that they're starting to, I don't know, do they have personalities? I'm not sure. But are they starting to kind of not show themselves as clearly as they used to? Or do they not show themselves as clearly to older children? I'm not sure. But I know adults who saw them. Like I know an adult recently who actually saw my angels, and so saw them very clearly. So I'm not sure why this kid couldn't see anything but the silhouette, but absolutely knew they were there and knew they looked very different than dark angels, and actually told me some stuff about myself, which I heard in the past too. So we'll get to that. So as you can hear, Child K had a lot of similarities to other children that have talked to me about being able to see ghosts. And what was so striking to me about this, and it's striking every single time, is remember, these are different kids, except these two were together and knew one another. That's never happened to me before. And so sometimes when I'm listening to these stories from kids, I'm thinking back in my past history as a psychologist, and I'm just blown away in my mind because I'm like, yep, heard that before. Goodness, this is new. Or, yeah, they confirm from me that they can see ghosts. And it's always different kids. It's always in different settings. I always say that's why I started to get so interested in it, because I kept hearing these stories. And I kept hearing them from kids and then some adults, and I kept hearing them at one point all the time, over and over again. And so a lot of this died down for me over the past, couple of years through COVID and all that. But then it started up again. And I thought, okay, this is just not going to go away. I'm going to keep meeting kids that can see ghosts. I'm going to keep telling the public about it. I'm going to keep talking about these stories. And so some of the things that both of these children share with me about, angels and about the disturbances in the home, those things are some of the things that, kids have told me and what they do about it. So they avoid parts of the house. They never sleep with the lights off ever, or they sleep with their parents and drive their parents insane because the parents just want to sleep by themselves. There are a lot of other symptoms that Child J had that reminded me of, except Child J is older and stronger and able to understand that these are things that should not be seen, but I see them anyway. And when I do see, I avoid that spot, or I put my head under the covers. Little kids get more terrified, obviously, because they don't understand it. And so Child J gave me a lot of information about more information about those ghosts. And I thought, God, this is the same way, for example, that Child A, long time ago, I wrote about Child A in my blog, depicted some of the disturbances around his or her house. So I have the ability to just kind of tie it all together. Now, Child K seemed more disturbed by it, if you will, but didn't tell me the nature of that disturbance, and didn't also tell me. Actually, Child K did tell me that he or she could see these things in his or her house as well. So that's not true. Yes, definitely, because they both agreed that sometimes they will be doing something and look up, even at school, and these entities will present themselves. But again, I'm trying to always pause to figure out which letter comes first. JKL, hello. Child J talks about it in terms of seeing them clearly, whereas Child K talked about them as being more translucent at times, and then also more of a silhouette. I got a good example of what that silhouette looks like. If you watch a movie, the movie Ghost with Demi Moore. Yeah. Okay. Ooh, I hope you guys have seen the movie. This might give it away, but Patrick Swayze's character goes to heaven. That's more of the um, translucent, and then the dark shadows are also in Ghost. Um, then sometimes you can see him clearly, like the man that tried to set up Patrick Swayze's character. And then, so that would be child J. And then K sees them like this sometimes. If you remember, uh, Whoopi Goldberg's character told Patrick Swayze they're waiting for you, and the camera shined the light to heaven, or what is depicted as heaven if they didn't say it. And then she said they're waiting for you, and you can see like the silhouettes of either people who have passed over or angels, and they were all white. If you ever watch Ghost, think about this blog, because there are a lot of similarities in that to what little kids have told me. So that part, and when Patrick Swayze's character walks off to heaven, that is what how child K describes what he or she sees. Um, and so, you know, to conclude this entire blog, I I had to think about what I wanted to say real quick. Obviously, this is going to continue. Not sure why it continues, but I'm so here for it and so ready for it to continue with these kids. Um, I actually told these kids how so happy I was to learn their stories. Just really happy. I mean, they shared a lot of things to me. Um, every now and then, the kids will become attached. So these kids did become attached and started to really open up over the next couple of weeks about being hashtag kids that can see ghosts, right? And wanted to tell me more of their experiences, wanted to share more with through me to all of you about what they can do. And um, one of the other topics that we wound up talking about was, excuse me, it's allergy season for me, guys. I'm sorry. Is what I ask some kids sometimes. What I ask because I'm searching for an answer, and I've gotten an answer, and I've gotten the same answer, and I always ask. I wonder why kids that see ghosts can come to me or feel as if they can come to me or open up. I swear these kids find me and I love them, all kids. Even the most difficult kids, gotta love them. And Child K said to me, because you glow, you can't see it, I can see it, you glow. Other kids have told me that. Child B told me that. Child C, Child A did not tell me that, but definitely the latter of the two. And because you glow, it means you're a good person, a safe person. And I started to laugh because I said, yeah, I've heard that. Now, it's not like these kids have had a long time with me, so they really don't know me, just so you know. And at the time I wrote this blog, I felt like, here we go again. Me seeing all the babies who can see ghosts just one more time, or at least I think one more time. Maybe it won't be one more time. So it continues. Now, that is blog 51. And that was the start of longer conversations with these two kids about seeing ghosts, but also a group of kids, as I mentioned earlier. And so, if you continue to read through the blog past February 2022, you'll learn that I had conversations with a group of children, whew, which was dynamic and scary at the same time. I'm not going to tell you why, you have to read about it. And so, next week or the following week, I'll let you guys know via social media again. Blog 52 is going to talk about ghosts or sleep paralysis. That is a question that's been posed to me a couple of times on social media. And I do check my social media messages. Then I'm going to talk about social media, but pause on social media for a minute. And there are many people who want to know what is pushing on me and stopping me from getting up when I am trying to get up at night. It's like I can't breathe. It won't let me up. Something is sitting on my chest. A lot of kids and adults have experienced this, but children who see ghosts and adults who see ghosts say to me all the time, it's demonic. There is a demonic spirit sitting on the chest, holding us down and not letting us up. Now, all of these individuals are not delusional and they are not hallucinating. There's too many of them in too many different spaces. And I have questions about sleep paralysis. And you all know that because I've talked about it. So, my next blog, when we come back together again, we're going to talk in detail about sleep paralysis. Because it is an interest of mine in relation to individuals that can see ghosts. So I answered a couple of questions, I believe, with sleep paralysis as well. Now, disclaimer, I don't specialize in sleep disorders. I don't. But doggone it, I know quite a bit about sleep paralysis, and I also learned a lot about it from individuals that can see ghosts. So we are going to talk about it. Lastly, I want to go back to social media. I post all the time. So if you guys are really avid listeners of my podcast, make sure you check Instagram at Kids Can See Ghosts Can You. That is a public page. I opened it back up. It is tied to my website. I will post on there whether or not, I'm going to have a podcast every week. In a couple of months, all of this will make sense to you guys. And then I'll be back full time doing this podcast every week. But I'll keep you posted and let you know how I'm doing next week and if I'm actually going to do this podcast next week. When other people comment on my website, I like it to be an open forum. I take all comments that are positive or negative and release them on my website. The negative ones that I don't release, mind you, are the obvious ones where some people are going after other people. Verbally, I don't allow that because to me, there's no need in doing that. It's a safe place where everybody can comment. It's a safe place where everybody can talk. Quora is huge for me. Thank you, Quora. It is huge for me. It is a place where I post. On some of the posts, you actually have to subscribe to me in order to see those posts. So if you get it, I also put on Quora whether or not I'm going to have the blog or not. The podcast or not. So if you get a chance, make sure you check Quora too. It's just my name. That's it. Lisa Liggins Chambers. And so please be respectful of other people on my website. If it's disrespectful to me or to other people, I don't release it. Obviously, I don't really talk about politics. So that's a no-go on my social media pages that are public. So if you have any questions for me, you make sure you let me know. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And I hope you all have a wonderful up and coming weekend. Bye-bye.